Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Alex and today I'm going to be doing something that I've wanted to do for a while, which is a 24-hour readathon. I'm going to be doing my readathon a little bit different than is traditional, which is that I was supposed to stay up for 24 hours and just read as many books as I could in that time, mostly because if I tried to stay up for 24 hours, I wouldn't be able to concentrate or retain anything that I was reading, so I've decided to do it in a little bit of a different way, which is that I'm going to break it up into 4-hour reading sprints over the course of 6 different sessions. I'll tell you what day of the week it is. So for example, today is Thursday and what time of day, so you'll be able to kind of track like which reading sprint that I'm in. I originally tried to start filming this video last night, which was a horrible mistake because I had had a long day at work and I couldn't actually stay up for 4 hours to read, but I did end up joining in a reading sprint with Kat from Kat's Novel Adventures, and I love her reading sprint. She does them every Wednesday. This was my second week joining and I plan to do it from here on out because they're just so enjoyable. And I'm going to use this opportunity to give Kat a shout out because she is a delightful and wonderful booktuber and she's so much fun to talk to and she always has great book recommendations, and her reading sprint last night was her 100th ever video. So congratulations again to you, Kat. That is a ton of work to put in on YouTube and I'm very proud of you. I'm going to be kicking off my reading sprint with A Memory Called Empire by Arkady Martine. If you saw my Beer Pong Chooses my September TBR, you know that this was one of the books that Keaton recommended. And I'm actually already on page 398 of 448, so you're catching me at the tail end of this book. I plan to give you a thorough but brief synopsis of what I think just because I don't want any book review to dominate this video, but I am really liking it so far. And with that, let's get into the reading. So I was able to finish A Memory Called Empire tonight, though I did not complete it before the sun went down. To give you a brief description of this book, this is about our main character Mahit Dismare, who is the ambassador for Liesel Station to the Texcalanli Empire. She is summoned to the Empire after her predecessor Yskander was murdered, and she is attempting to figure out why he was murdered and who possibly could have done it. In doing so, she ends up discovering a larger plot that has great ramifications for what is going to happen to the Texcalanli Empire as a whole. I will begin this review by saying that under normal circumstances, A Memory Called Empire would not have been a book that I picked up on my own. I picked this up purely because it was Keaton's recommendation and he ended up really enjoying it. For me, if I had seen this at a Barnes & Noble and I had been reading the back description and I had seen names like Texcalanli Empire, and I would have to take the time to sound it out and try to figure out, it's like, okay, how is this actually pronounced? I'm usually not into that. I don't like the trope in sci-fi that authors come up with these wild, outlandish, and kind of ridiculous names. I also find it pretty standard for sci-fi to have things like political intrigue and war and plots about war, and I was like, okay, how is this book going to be any different? But it was! This book was very different than what I originally expected it to be in a positive way. And I should have known better because it was the winner of the Hugo Award in 2020, and I believe the sequel, A Desolation Called Peace, was also the winner of the Hugo Award, Keaton told me. And, you know, that's not really handed out to just anybody. I enjoyed the sci-fi technology in here that I thought was very unique. So you have things like imagos that our ambassador Mahit has at the back of her neck. And what it is it's basically a mental imprint of her predecessor, and her people on her station each have an imago that carries the line of all of the people who previously worked in a particular job. So Yskander, a copy of him, if you will, is in the back of her head, and he actually will talk to her in her mind. And I thought that that was very unique, and the Texcalanli don't have that in their empire, and it's kind of a Liesel Station secret. Then you have the members of the Texcalanlitzlum, which is how you say an individual that is part of the Texcalanli Empire. You see what I'm getting at about the names. They have what are called cloud hooks, and they're basically these screens that sit over one eye at all times, and it's constantly feeding them news and poetry and stories from their empire. And when they take it off, it's almost like somebody who's constantly glued to their cell phone, like taking their phone away from them, and they kind of feel a little bit naked and exposed. And I like this idea that these two cultures have technology that neither one has access to, but is very important for each one. The narrative also takes place over a pretty short period of time. It all happens within a week. So if you can imagine a political intrigue, there's no long con for Mahit. She's just learning what everyone else has been doing in their spare time and kind of putting the pieces together. It has all these different threads and conspiracies, and everybody's trying to stab somebody else in the back or try to take the throne for themselves, and it's all handled in a pretty unique way, and I do appreciate the incredible attention to detail. So many moving parts. If you don't like books that you're going to have to really try to keep track of all the pieces, this might not be for you. But if you're somebody that enjoys that, you like trying to kind of fit the jigsaw puzzle together and you want to maybe guess, who's plotting what, you might really like this book. My one complaint about Mahit, and Keaton did tell me that this was a fair complaint, is there's something that happens at the beginning of the story, so this isn't a spoiler, where Mahit's imago malfunctions and she's no longer able to hear Yskander in her brain. There are so many points in this story where she keeps talking about how much she misses him and how lost she feels without him and how lonely and how desperately she wishes she had a friend who understood her. And I'm like, okay, at a certain point, you don't need to keep repeating it. I get it. That said, there are things that happen towards the end of the book that make her stress and her agonizing over the loss of Yskander feel more impactful. So things do improve for Mahit later on in the story with her general outlook on things, but I have a huge complaint with books that are repetitive. It's not horribly repetitive, it's just kind of annoying. So I'm incredibly happy to tell you that what I predicted I was going to rate this book was absolutely spot on, and that is 4.5 out of 5 stars. So if you were a fan of science fiction, I would highly recommend that you pick this up. So now that I'm done with this book, I'm going to go draw myself a bath, and I'm going to start my next book for my September TBR, which was Frightful's Mountain. And that is actually the third book in a trilogy. Keaton wanted me to start with a third book because that was the book that he started with when he was a child. And all that I know is that it's about a falcon named Frightful who is trying to get back to the boy who I think trained her. And it sounds like a good time. I have gotten 2 out of my 4 hours done tonight. I was having some difficulty with concentration. I kept having to reread things over and over again. It's really not the fault of the book. It was the fault of my brain. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to get through at least a decent amount of Frightful's Mountain while I'm in the tub. But either way, still got another 2 hours. I'm going to accomplish as much as I can. So I just got done with a very relaxing bath. I am completely covered in glitter. I got 37 pages into Frightful's Mountain. My bathtub looks like an absolute train wreck, and I'm ready to go to sleep. I felt like my reading tonight was much slower than it normally is, but I have to keep in mind that in that 4 hours, I also was doing filming and my book review, and I was getting the bathtub ready, and I was taking time to actually enjoy being in the bath. It wasn't just 4 hours of perfectly focused reading, but I did the best that I could. So solid start in Frightful's Mountain. I think it's okay right now. Honestly, I'm not a huge fan of it, but it's also difficult when you start with a book that is later on in the series. In this case, it's the last book in a series, and you're being introduced to characters that you're not familiar with. But I have a feeling that as it goes on and I kind of get some familiarity with them, that I'm probably going to like it a little bit more. So I'm still definitely holding out hope. So with that, I do feel like I'm ready to turn in for the evening. Tomorrow is Friday, woo woo, which means that I have dinner plans with my friend Brian, and I'm really looking forward to those. So I'm probably also going to have a later start to my reading tomorrow, the same way that I did tonight, which is totally okay. I'm off on a really good foot. So I really hope that you've enjoyed this first little bit. And with that, I'm going to say good night, and I will see you all tomorrow. Hey everyone, so today is Friday. It probably doesn't look like much has changed since last night, given the fact that the lighting is the same in my office, and that's because I was right. I ended up getting back pretty late this evening after having dinner with Brian. It was about 7:30 when I walked in the door, and it's after 8 o'clock now, so definitely going to be having a late night tonight. I'm going to try to stay up for the full 4 hours, so that would be after midnight. I'm going to do my best, and I'm going back into Frightful's Mountain, so I'll keep you posted. Oh, one thing I do want to say about this really quick is, I know I said last night that I wasn't really liking it all that much, but I was so tired that I don't think I explained why. And the main reason is it is written in such a way that you can tell that it's meant to be educational for kids, which isn't a bad thing at all, but it feels very dry. It's like somebody was trying to describe a National Geographic video and put all of the details of the video into words. So it's very descriptive, but I think it honestly would have been a lot better with a visual component. And I think they recognize that because of the fact that there are little illustrations. So I like that they added the illustrations, even if they're, you know, small and kind of like rougher sketches. But I'm going to keep reading it, and I hope I'm going to end up enjoying it more as I go. But I am not actually going to be reading in my office tonight. I'm going out in my living room and lounging on the couch with Keaton. So I think that'll be really nice, as long as I don't fall asleep. So I'll see you all in a little bit. So it's now Saturday at 4:30 p.m. I made it a whopping 1 hour into reading last night before I completely passed out on the couch. So I failed my goal of reading for 4 hours a day on day 2. But that's okay, because I'm going to make up those extra 3 hours this weekend. I went putting around town with my mom today and did something that normally we don't do, which is go to Target. I know a lot of people, they're dedicated to Target, it's their favorite place to shop. I never go there, but for some reason, I just had a feeling that they were going to end up having some fall decorations that I really liked, and they did. So this is what I ended up getting, and I thought that they were absolutely darling. So the shop, the cemetery, and the house were all individual pieces. So I bought those separately, and then I bought 2 little kits that had the different figures in them. So the trick-or-treaters were in one set, and then the tree, the skeleton man, and the tombstone were in another set. And I just decided I was going to build my own town for my bookshelf. And I thought that it turned out super cute, so I'll have these forever now, and I've started finally collecting fall decorations for my house. We also ended up going to a different public library than the one that I normally go to, and I ended up discovering that they had subscriptions to the magazine called Book Page. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with this or not, but they're a monthly subscription that you can pay for, and they pretty much tell you about the latest and hottest books available. They're really thin, so, you know, not a substantial or regular kind of magazine, but I had been feeling for a while like I wanted to get a subscription to this, and I found out that the library offers them for free. So every month, if I wanted to, I could go over there and I could just get a new one. So I ended up getting the one from September and the one from October. So I'm really looking forward to diving into these two. But now I'm going to go dive back into Frightful's Mountain. I'm on page 51. So even with the reading that I did last night, I didn't get very far. But that's okay, because now I get to go lay in my hammock and take my bottle of water with me and just relax. It's a little after 8:30 now, so it's been 4 hours since I last talked to you. In that time, I did do quite a bit of reading, but I also took some breaks to fold some laundry, to mow the lawn, and eat dinner. So in total, I would say those other things probably took about an hour of my time. So I think I got around 3 hours of reading, not a perfect, like fully focused 3 hours of reading, but as good as I think that I was going to get for my time. I'm about halfway through the book right now. It has definitely changed from the beginning portion of the story. So humans were reintroduced into the book, so it isn't just Frightful going around in nature all by herself, which is honestly a really good thing because now the book has become far more interesting. We have some characters who are conservationists who go around to schools and they showcase endangered birds to children to try to teach them about ways that they can be saved and why birds of prey are important. And halfway through the book, we're now in a situation where Frightful is having babies of her own, and there is a lot of drama around where she has decided to raise her young, which is on this bridge that is currently undergoing major repairs, and they're pretty much going to be forced to move their nest because the bridge has to be painted in addition to the other work that's been going on. So I would definitely say that it's better than it was in the first 70 pages. It took until 70 pages for us to meet the conservationists, which for not liking the first 70 pages of a book that's only 255 pages, that's not great, but I'm sticking with it and I'm really interested to see how it's going to end. I'm going to attempt to finish the book tonight if at all possible, but I'm not going to try to push myself too hard. I do want to give Jean Craighead George credit for her ability to showcase how difficult it is for birds of prey to live in the wild, especially in colder months. So this takes place in New York, and Frightful has to try to survive the winter on her own, but she decides not to fly south because she's trying to stick close to where she was raised, and she's never had to experience life in the wild during the freezing months before. She's always been brought inside. That part of it was very fascinating because I feel like I have learned so much about peregrine falcons, and before this I don't want to say that I didn't care about them because I love all nature, but I didn't have a reason to care about them specifically. But now I feel like I have an affection for them and I understand why they are important, and I also can see why Keaton would love this as a kid. I think that this would be very impactful for a child. I think that it is definitely written for a younger audience. The language is very simplistic. It's accessible to anyone. So in that way, I would definitely say that it has positive qualities. But anyway, I'm going to go make some tea. I'll probably end up showing you my mug. And let's just get back into it. It's 11:57 Saturday night and I officially finished Frightful's Mountain. I did take a quick break in there just to give my mind a bit of a rest, but I genuinely wanted to finish this book after getting to about the halfway point. Narratively, this went in a direction that I was not expecting at all. So first 70 pages, very choppy. They're like, this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and Frightful has no inner monologue, so it was honestly quite boring, and I would have given that part of the book like a solid 2 stars. It's the reason I wasn't enjoying it very much. From about page 70 to the halfway point, it turns into Frightful rearing young and trying to learn how to be a wild falcon. That part of the story I would give about a 3 star. It was starting to get better. But at the halfway point, there is literally a baby bird kidnapping, and it turns into a totally different book, and I was sitting here kind of on the edge of my seat like, what is going to happen to these baby birds? and the story got so much better. From that point on, the story was at least a 4, though there were some moments that I actually got kind of choked up, and I would rate those sections like a 4.5. I cannot recall another book I've read where my rating changed so drastically along points of the book. Like, usually for me, I can tell pretty early on how I'm going to feel about a story unless it really takes a turn. This, pretty much every step of the way, I was feeling a little bit different about it. That said, Frightful's Mountain has something else that I really appreciate in addition to, you know, showing the real lives of falcons and the things that they have to endure and how DDT can poison them and how harsh their environments can be. That was all great. But there were also topics in here that I feel are vitally important for children to learn about at a young age. Things like death and loss and change, and how those things can be painful to deal with and they can be really hard to deal with, but sometimes they're really important and other times they're things that just happen. I have to admit that especially in the first part of this book where I really wasn't liking it, I was having that feeling of, wow, this was a terrible idea to start with book 3 in a series. No offense to Keaton, I was just like, this is not having the impact on me that I feel like it should be if I had read the other 2 books. Funny enough, my opinion on that has completely changed. I think that this book, having not read the other ones, was probably the right choice to have me begin with. And the reason is that it is about Frightful being set free. It's about Sam, who is the person who originally trained her, coming to terms with the fact that she needs to be a wild falcon. She needs to learn how to fend for herself. She needs to be able to have babies and help with the population crisis. And her part in nature is extremely important, and she can't fulfill that by being basically a pet that somebody keeps. So this is her story of finally living her life, and it was really beautiful, and there were parts that were really painful, and overall I would say that I liked this book. Because of my changes in how I liked it over the course of the story, this is a little bit tricky for me to rate, because if I think of the rating that I would give this book, if we were to remove my feeling of the first 70 pages, I would probably say that this would be like a 4, but I can't take away those first 70 pages, which were over a quarter of the story. So with that in mind, the ending is solid, the beginning is not. I'm gonna give this a 3.5. And with that, I'm pretty tired, and I think that I'm going to start winding down for the evening. The really exciting news is tomorrow I actually get to start Dark Matter by Blake Crouch, and I am thrilled. So I also need to plug in my Kindle because I have a digital copy and I need to charge that. So I'm going to do that before I go to sleep, but I will see you all tomorrow. Hey everyone, it's Sunday at 5 p.m. I have not done any reading today. I'm getting ready to start Dark Matter. My goal is to read for 5 hours, so I'm probably going to be reading until at least 10 p.m. I also have a new recipe in the oven right now baking. I made a pumpkin cinnamon roll cake. Normally, I'm not the largest fan of pumpkin, but I'm feeling kind of seasonal and festive today, and I wanted to give it a try, but I'm really hopeful that it's going to end up being delicious. If it's something that looks good to you, let me know and I will make a video where I give you all the recipe. But yep, I'm all ready for Dark Matter and I'm gonna go ahead and dive right in. All right, taste test. Ooh, it's very gooey, which I love. Oh. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so good. You all are gonna want this recipe, right? Oh. If you do, let me know down in the comments. Hey, it is 10 p.m. and I know I didn't technically show you any of my reading over the course of these 5 hours, but I did show you cake. So really, which one's more important? I am a third of the way through Dark Matter, and I realized that I also didn't tell you what this book is about. I feel like I've been doing a terrible job of explaining to you what the books that I am reading are actually about. But with Dark Matter, that's for a good reason. And that's because I've been trying to stay away from anything related to Dark Matter. I actually didn't really want to know what the story was about. I wanted to go into it completely blind. I had a suspicion that it had something to do with the multiverse or something along those lines because of the name of the book, but I wasn't entirely certain. That has now been confirmed, and honestly, I'm really enjoying it so far. Some things to note about the writing. I find that Blake Crouch has this way of making it to where his stories are completely immersive, at least they are to me. And what that means for me is I am able to picture myself in the shoes of these characters and start wondering about how I would react in these situations. It's the reason why I felt very passionately about the beginning and the way that Jason was handling being abducted in the car and all of these things. And I think that that's a really great quality because it makes me want to keep reading the story. I'm wanting to know what's happening, how is the situation going to unfold. And it's been a little bit since I've read Recursion, so I forgot how fast and refreshing Crouch's writing is, because a lot of science fiction stories, they're not told in a way that I find to be particularly accessible to everybody, and not all science fiction needs to be accessible. Some of it can be, deeper sci-fi or more hardcore sci-fi. I don't think that Crouch's writing is hard science fiction. I think that anybody could read it and anybody could understand what's going on, even if intermittently they throw out these phrases that only really people who study science or read sci-fi would understand. That doesn't really matter because they're very few and far between and used sparingly. So I'm overall really happy with the reading that I got done tonight. That said, I did treat this more probably like a regular sprint where you sit and you read for 20 to 30 minutes and then you take a short break and then you go back to reading. So was it a perfect 5 hours of me just reading this book? No, but that's what I needed in order to give myself a chance to process what I was reading. I find if I force myself to continue to read even when my brain is tired, or I'm trying to say I want to sit for exactly 1 hour and I need to just get X amount of reading done, I'm going to struggle a lot more, particularly with my enjoyment of that reading, because I'm going to feel more like it's a chore than an activity that I'm doing for a hobby. So I think I did a good job taking breaks. I'm going to turn in for the evening, going to kind of unwind in a non-reading fashion and kind of just let my brain shut off. I got a busy week ahead of me for work. I'm hosting another event on Tuesday. There's probably going to be over 200 people that show up, so I definitely want to make sure that I start this week off on the right foot, being rested. So with that, I will check in with you all tomorrow. Hi everyone. So I know you're fully expecting that today should be Monday, but it isn't. It's actually Wednesday. On Monday, I wasn't feeling very well. I was having a really bad stomach cramp, and I actually had to take half a day off of work, which is very unlike me. And I did manage to get in 2 hours of reading, but I didn't film anything that day, naturally, because I just wasn't up for it. Yesterday, I was hosting an event at the company that I work for, and 146 people showed up, which was awesome, and they had a great time, but I didn't end up getting home until almost 7:30 at night, which means that I was running around for about 11 hours yesterday, and I also physically was not feeling up for filming. So what I'm getting at is this video is an epic failure. I have not accomplished my original goal of trying to film for 4 hours a day over the course of 6 days pretty much at all. I think out of all of this filming, I've only had 3 days where I've actually hit at least 4 hours. So at this point, one of two things could have happened. I could have decided to either just get rid of all of the footage and pretend like I never tried to do this at all and none of you would have ever seen it, or I could have lied and pretended like today is Monday. YouTube, it's all about the editing. It's all about the perspective that we as the YouTuber want to show you. I don't want to lie to you though. I don't want to pretend like I didn't take the time to make this video, and I don't want to pretend like I didn't have to take 2 days off of filming, because I did. I'm a human being, I work a full-time job. If you're considering doing YouTube, you may end up feeling pressured to try to create content and to stay on a schedule, and I want you to know that it's okay if you can't do that. We're all people. We're all out here just living our lives, doing the best that we can. And I have had fun reading the books that I have in this video, even if it has been inconsistent. And I hope that you're enjoying this as well. So today, I'm going to continue. I'm going to persevere in my goal, even though it's a delayed goal. I have 6 hours of reading left that I'm going to try to do today. Kat is doing her Wednesday reading sprints, which I'm really looking forward to doing. So pretty much we've come a full week since I initially tried to make this video. I'm halfway through Dark Matter right now, which is awesome. I will say that I was not expecting some of the elements in that book to be as terrifying as they are. It's been a little bit since I've read Recursion, and I do remember that things could be kind of intense in that story, but I don't remember anything actually being terrifying. There's something about the way that Blake Crouch is presenting the multiverse that just makes me feel very uneasy. And that's a good thing, because I think that if the multiverse really does exist, then the way that he's portraying it might be realistic. So I'm looking forward to doing this last little push with my reading. If I'm lucky, I will be able to finish Dark Matter, and if not, that's totally okay. But I will give you an update, and I will see you very soon. What? Wait.
2 hours later.
I finished the book, and I am absolutely stunned. Like, I am having a very similar reaction to my adoration and, like, awe of reading Recursion. Like, Blake Crouch has to be one of the most talented and creative authors to ever write science fiction. He references so much of what we know right now about the universe and astrophysics and, you know, things that I've learned about from like Michio Kaku and Neil deGrasse Tyson and Stephen Hawking and Carl Sagan, and it's awesome to see that information turned into what I would consider to be a very easily digestible bite. Genuinely, anybody could read Dark Matter and understand what's going on. You might not understand the science behind it, you know, the little bits that he tries to explain, but you can enjoy the insane ride of the story. Like I said, that was like as emotional for me as when I read Recursion. And that's saying a lot. I never know with authors whose first book I give 5 stars, I'm like, are they going to be able to recreate it? Are they going to be able to do it again? He did. They hit really hard. They're emotional. They're mentally stimulating. They really get you thinking. I thought at one part in this book, I was like, this is going to be so formulaic. There's going to be a trope that's going to happen here. I can see it coming a mile away. It's going to be incredibly annoying. And we got there and my mind was just blown. Like, that was the footage that you saw of me just like sitting forward and being like, what? Is because that legitimately is actually how I felt. I couldn't believe what was going on because it was nothing like what I expected. On that fact alone, like, I absolutely would recommend this book wholeheartedly, 100%. I think it would be a really interesting book to read again. Obviously not immediately, but somewhere down the line, I think I would love to pick this up again now that I know what I know. It's a 5-star book. I'd highly recommend it. It's 9:45, and I started reading a little bit after 4:30. And I said that I was going to read for 6 hours. So I was supposed to be reading until 10:30, so I have another 45 minutes. Do I really want to start another book? I don't think so. I want to be able to just sleep on this one book, and I will get myself ready for the books that I'm going to be reading in October. I'm going to be making my TBR video soon, sometime after this comes out. Please let me know what you thought of this video down in the comments. It was absolutely an experiment, but I would like to know if you would want to see more content like this in the future. And as always, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day or evening, that you all stay safe out there, and I'll see you next time.